Hi everyone. Sadly, the recording didn't work yesterday, so unfortunately, I didn't get the presentation. All the questions afterwards, there were some fabulous questions afterwards that stimulated some great conversation and raised some great points. So unfortunately, I've missed those. I did do another recording, so I recorded the content again for you, but forgot to share my screen. So I had to walk away, take a deep breath, and now I'm back today. So fingers crossed, we are recording, we are sharing screen right now, and I'm going to have another go at sharing the content from yesterday's meeting about separation values. I wanted to start by sharing the picture of Bobby Jones, and for me this starts with Bobby Jones. And Bobby Jones said the secret to golf was to have the ability to turn 3 shots into 2. But what he didn't do is highlight potentially how or where to save those shots. But as a quick introduction to Bobby Jones, for me, he was an absolute legend, and if I could have been any golfer, past or present, I think I would like to have lived the golfing life of Bobby Jones. He was an amateur golfer born in 1902. He won 34 times, and he won 13 times, 13 majors in just 7 years, between 1923 and 1930. And at the time, the majors were different tournaments. Golf was a slightly different game. And he won the US Open, the US Amateur, the British Amateur, and the Open Championship. And that's those 4 trophies in that picture there. And in 1930, after winning those 4 events, he actually retired from the game at the age of 28. And he pursued a career in law, and he became a lawyer. But he was so popular within the world of golf, and being quite an introvert person, he needed some space, and he wanted some space, just somewhere he could go in order to enjoy his golf with friends. So in 1932, he bought a plot of land in Atlanta, Georgia. And with Alister MacKenzie, he designed a golf course that we now know and love as Augusta National. And in 1934, he inaugurated the Masters Championship, or the Masters, which is our first major championship of the men's golfing season. So the majors now, during this time, are the Masters, the USPGA, the Open, and the US Open. So it's a slightly different game, but he's the only person ever to have won all 4 recognized majors in the same year. Tiger Woods has won all 4 majors, and I'm sure some of you, most of you know who, or I've heard of Tiger Woods. He did win all 4 majors back to back, but they crossed over a calendar year. So they're kind of known as the Tiger Slam, as opposed to the Grand Slam, which Bobby Jones is the only person ever to have achieved. And I think this is one of the reasons I love watching Bobby Jones' swing. And I wanted to share this with you just so you get the opportunity to see it in action. It's a YouTube clip, so you can actually log on and have a look at Bobby Jones in full flow. But for me, it's just a thing of beauty.
Watch Bobby's next shot closely. A perfect bullseye. One good camera gone.
And he was also very accurate. So we're going to pause that. We don't want to listen to Brandel.
As you take a look at the tournament.
Okay, so back to Bobby Jones. He said, the secret to good golf is the ability to turn 3 shots into 2. But as I mentioned earlier, what he didn't really give us is any insight into how or where we might do that. So this is where I turn to the work of Eric Barzetsky and David Wedzik, who in their book Lowest Score Win, they talk about separation value, and they talk about where we might be able to look in order to save shots and actually convert those 3 into 2, wherever they be on the golf course. But before I kind of go into detail for their work, I want to revisit shot patterns, which is what we talked about last week in our shot strategies. And the concept that what we're trying to do is understand that when we're playing golf, we're playing into space. When we hit a golf shot, we're playing into space. We're not necessarily playing at a target. So when I fire out 15, 20 drivers, I'm going to hit a shot pattern that might look a little bit like this. And when I play this 240-yard shot that comes out nicely out the middle of the club, flies an extra 15 or so yards further than my average, and that for me is more of an exceptional shot. So we spoke a little bit about how on a golf course we might be playing around, and we might not be playing our best golf or striking it our best, and we might get round to the 12th hole or the 13th hole, and then we just suddenly flush a driver, comes right out the middle of the screws, straight down the middle of the fairway, very little shape on it, beautiful fly, and then runs out into the middle of the fairway. And we kind of might have a conversation with ourselves along the lines of, and why can't I do that all the time? Why if I could just repeat that on a regular basis, then the game would be easy. That's the game I know I can play and I want to play. But I think that's a slightly flawed thinking, and I want us to be very careful of that. That 240-yard shot that comes out, that's the exception. That's not the norm. And I think a better way of looking at golf is we want to look at improving the quality of all of our shots and the shots we hit most often, not just compare ourselves against the best shot and worry about why we can't repeat that on a more regular basis. So the shots we hit most often, or the shots that I hit most often in this shot pattern, are kind of around the highlighted golf ball here. That's our shot center, which we spoke about last week. And that's where most of the shots lie. And I think that's acceptable. I think in relation to this shot pattern, if we understand what shot patterns look like, this 240 ball is more one of the exceptional shots. These are acceptable shots in here because they fit nicely into the middle of our shot pattern. And then this ball out here, low right, is fine. That's unacceptable. That's a shot that's going to put us in trouble, and that's a shot that's that we don't want in our bag. But you can see in this shot pattern that only happened once. So I think it's quite useful to understand the quality of golf is about improving the shots you hit most often, and understanding what that looks like in a shot pattern, and actually starting to measure our shots in a way that's more exceptional, acceptable, and unacceptable. And I'm kind of conscious that might be similar to a concept that I introduced last week, where we might measure shots on the golf course: an improver, a maintainer, or a worsener. So has this shot improved my chances of achieving personal par, or maintained my chances of achieving personal par, or worsened my chances of achieving personal par? And I want to make a clear distinction here, because the improver, maintainer, and worsener are measuring against your ability to score personal par, whereas exceptional, acceptable, and unacceptable are measuring in relation to your consistent shot pattern. And there is a connection between the two, but they are two very, very different things. So once we start to understand our shot patterns and what we currently do, we can then start to think about how does that fit into my ability to shoot my personal par, and also more immediately, but also it gives me the opportunity to reflect back on my bigger picture of where I want to be further down the line, a goal I might have towards the end of the season or over the next 2 or 3 years. And I can then start planning a journey towards that. So the work of Eric Barzetsky and David Wedzik, they've created this concept of separation value. So what this is a concept that says these skills in golf are more valuable than other skills in golf. So for example, the higher the separation value 4 are your high skills. This is what separates European Tour, US PGA Tour players from the average club golfer. They drive the ball longer and straighter than club golfers do. Separation value 1, for example, practicing being brilliant inside 3 feet, there has very little separation value between a European Tour player and a lot of club golfers. And to kind of bring that to life for you a little bit, I shared the example of going head to head with Rory McIlroy. So if you were to go head to head with Rory McIlroy and you wanted to have a chance, or you didn't want him to beat you at something in the game, then you could take him to 6 inches away from the hole. And if you were holing out from 6 inches away, you wouldn't miss from 6 inches, and nor would Rory. So arguably you could say that you were world class from 6 inches away. As you gradually get further away from the hole, then obviously the separation between you and Rory might start to become more evident. So they've done the work and parking these skills in these boxes, highlighting separation value. And this has been done by looking into a lot of statistics, and Mark Brody's work, Every Shot Counts, is another great book that they've drawn from, where a load of shots have been recorded, entered into lots of systems, and outputs lots of useful statistics and information that help us with improving our games and understanding what good performance looks like, and understanding what good performance looks like at different levels. So how did they come up with this? They didn't just kind of randomly go, oh, well, chuck it in this box or that box. They came up with a score system. So I've written that down there for you to have a look at. Number 1 is S. So the acronym SCORE, number 1 is S, so that's strokes. How many strokes can you save each time by improving at this skill? C is for ceiling. How high is the ceiling for this skill? How good can you get at it? That really speaks to understanding what realistic performance looks like. And I'm going to talk about that a bit later in one of the case studies, which is I did actually miss out in our original presentation. O is for opportunities. How many opportunities will you have in 18 holes to use this skill? And R is related to skills, is related skills. How many other skills would closely relate to this skill? Therefore, there'd be an element of transfer if you got good at this skill into other skills. So by way of an example, I've taken driving, which is a separation value 4, and fairway bunker shots, which is separation value 1, and try to share with you an example of how strokes in the 90s golfer, the golfer that shoots 90s, would save 0.5 of a shot if they drove the ball 275 yards while hitting 60% of fairways. The 80s golfer would save 0.3 of a shot, and the 70s golfer would save 0.15 of a shot. And when you look across to the fairway bunkers, you can see, well, fairway bunkers, if I'm a 90 shooter, I'm going to save 1.5. If I can hit the 50%, hit the green 50% of the time, or 90% near the green in regulation, then that's going to save me 1.5 shots. And for the 80 shooter, it's going to save me a whole shot. And for the 70 shooter, it's going to save me half a shot. And this is where the system works really well, I think, because you'd think, well, actually, let me go and you practice fairway bunkers and I can save myself a whole ton of shots. But actually, the opportunities that present themselves in a round of golf, you can see in driving, the 90s golfer will have 14 attempts, therefore saving himself or herself 7 shots. The 80s golfer has 14 attempts, saving 2.1 shots. The 70s golfer has 14 attempts, saving them 2.1 shots a round. Whereas the fairway bunkers, the opportunities to actually play fairway bunker shots is very limited. So the 90s golfer is going to save 1.5 shots, once every 2 rounds. So their saving is going to be insignificant. So they could channel a lot of energy into practicing fairway bunker shots on the thinking that it's going to save them 1.5 every time they go in a fairway bunker. But actually the opportunities don't present themselves very much. So I think it's quite a robust system. And it gives us an opportunity, if we understand this system, to kind of reflect back on our own game. And again, thank you to everyone who completed the SurveyMonkey. It just hopefully is going to help this make more sense to you as well, where you can start channeling your energies into particular areas of the game by understanding how many strokes you could save each time, what good performance looks like and what that ceiling is, how many opportunities are presenting themselves for your game, and what are the related skills that you could equally tap into. So I also wanted to share with you the concept of distance and accuracy. So again, I think this is something that can get a little bit lost. So we often have a kind of belief. So the drive for show, putt for dough thing that I put in the marketing to start off with I think is massively flawed. If you're consistently putting for sixes and sevens because you can't get to the green, you're not going to be putting for many wins. So yes, we want to be good at putting, but we want to be even better at driving a golf ball and getting the ball to the green and approach shots. And even when it comes to driving, we sometimes have some conversations around, well, I want to be more accurate. I'd rather play from the fairway than from the rough. Well, if you're playing from the rough 20 yards further down, actually you've got more chance of scoring lower than if you're playing from the fairway 20 yards further back. Now, obviously, that needs to be contextualized. It depends on the length of the rough and what golf course and other factors to the hole. But in principle, the numbers are 20 yards more distance is going to be much more valuable than 1 degree of more accuracy. And this shines through at all levels. And you can see on the LPGA Tour here, money earned on average by driving distance. So the further you hit it, then on average, the more shots, the more money you're going to make. And it's even bigger at the USPGA Tour level in 2018, where the further you hit the golf ball, the more money you make. So again, it becomes quite evident the thing that's separating these players. Yes, there's other factors and it needs to be a bit more personalized, but there's a very strong pattern that says actually the further I hit it is a huge separation value in relation to how much money I might make. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of separation value and what that looks like. I'm going to send you the document so you can have a look at that for yourselves. But I wanted to talk through some of the case studies and again, bring this to life for you a little bit. So here's a case study where a player, the 2020 vision is they want to achieve a solid 4 handicap. They currently play off 6. They used to play off of 1. So they've got a good concept and understanding of the game. Their top 3 focus areas to achieve their 2020 vision are to drive the ball consistently, which will lead to better scores, approach to the green and hitting the quarter of the flag more consistently, and mental focus, which lasts beyond the 15th hole. So playing the 18th as they did the first. And you can see within there, that to me would be pretty much A-level standard in the sense that they've picked out and they've identified separation value for driving, approach play, and potentially there's an element of gameplay in there as well, that last one. But what I wanted to pick up on and what I wanted to share with you as a group is all of a sudden we can now start to see there'll be some value in that ceiling and understanding what the ceiling is. So driving consistently, which will lead to much better scores each hole, is a great generalized concept, but we need to know what the ceiling is. Where do we want to be? Where are we now? And where do we want to be? Because then we can start planning that journey. At the moment, we don't know what driving consistency means to this player. The other thing I wanted to share and pick up on was approach to the green and hitting the quarter with the flag more consistently. That sounds like a brilliant goal, and you can actually see that's a bit more specific. However, I actually feel that's going to be too high. That's actually not needed. I think to start off with, and it would be interesting to measure and see what this player is doing at the moment. But my feeling is that actually just by hitting more greens, they would be able to bring their score down. They wouldn't need to push towards hitting the quarter of the green that the flag is on. And in actual fact, I'd suggest if they did start to target the flag more often, or if that's something that they're trying to do, then they're actually probably missing more greens as a result of that strategy, as opposed to just hitting more greens, accidentally making more birdies, but securing more pars, as we spoke about last week. So that's an interesting one that I'd like to explore further with this player. And then the mental focus, which lasts beyond the 15th hole. There's lots of gameplay strategy in there, but that also might ask the question of nutrition. Is this golfer looking after themselves on the golf course? Are they refueling appropriately? Are they eating and drinking well enough so that when it comes into the last few holes of the round, they're still mentally and physically ready to play the game? So that's what I love about this, is it allows us to have those conversations. And then in question 7, where it's rate my game, it's again evident they've ranked 4 and they've ranked 5 for approach shots. So 4 for tee shots and 5 for approach shots. And again, that's pretty cool because that matches their top 3 focus area. And again, it's just identifying, right, what does 4 look like? And what would 8 look like? So if we wanted to make a progress to 8, then what would that look like? If we wanted to progress 5 out of 10 for approach shots to an 8 out of 10, what would that look like? And then we can start planning that journey. So I thought that was a really good example, and thanks for sharing that. The second case study was a player who has a 20/20 vision of maintaining a 6-7 handicap. They want to win a couple of board events and a knockout competition and finish top 5 in club championships, which I think, again, is really cool goals. They're certainly going to help with motivation. They're certainly going to help with wanting to get out and practice a little bit more. But I want to be careful that the season and even those tournaments, the success of those tournaments aren't dependent on achieving or winning those events or achieving those goals. And the reason I say that is because you never know who else is going to turn up on that day. You can nail your strategy, you can nail your practice plans, you can be in the game of your life, and then you can go out and play really well and achieve all you wanted to achieve at a personal level. But unfortunately, someone might just get a bit more luck or step up on that day and equally achieve their standards, and they just happen to pip you at the post. But what I love about this is that if we put the right strategy in place, what we can do is make sure that we're in contention, and that we can make sure if the opportunity presents itself, we're ready, we're there, and we are going to step up and take that tournament. So question 5, linking into question 5, what are my focus areas? We've got hit wedges closer, we've got better plan around the course, and improve consistency of driver. So again, within consistency of driver, we've got separation value 4, better planning around the golf course, separation value 4, and hit wedges closer. I wasn't sure whether that was separation 4 with approach play, or whether that was kind of 20 to 60 yard shots, which would be separation value 2. But I thought that was just an interesting one. Where does that fit into? So I thought I'd scroll down to question 7, and I look at approach shots playing into greens as 8, and I see pitch shots as 8. And then I scroll down and think, well, actually, the 8's the second highest ranking there. So again, this presents the opportunity to understand better with this player, what does hit wedges closer actually mean? How, as far as ceilings are concerned, can we better rank these, if it's approach shots or if it's pitch shots? And then we can clearly get, right, where am I now? Where do I want to be? And then start planning that journey. But the other thing with hit wedges closer, depending on whether we're talking full wedges from 100 to maybe 125 yards, or whether we're talking about wedges between 20 and 60 yards, the separation values are going to actually be different depending on the opportunities that are going to be presented in a round of golf, and also the related skills. So if we're talking about full shots, that's going to be a higher ranking, and I think, yes, that's something we could go for. If it's not, if it's between the 20 and 60 yard shots, then I might actually suggest we look at chip shots inside 30 yards, because these are greenside shots and actually are separation value 3. So that's a really good example of actually how we might use the separation value in order to help shape this player's practice plans going forward. So the last case study was this player who just wants to break 100 consistently. Their top 3 focuses were driving, irons, and putting. So again, really interesting. This player doesn't have a lot of experience. They're just kind of getting into the game, I think, and looking to play a lot more. But intuitively, they've chosen separation value 4 for focus 1 and 2, and a good separation value in separation value 2 for putting. They've identified that as well. So predominantly, they've identified separation value 4s, and I think we all know that. I think we kind of get this sense, well, if I can hit it longer and straighter, that's a no-brainer, right? It's going to be an easier game to play. But I think if we can understand, okay, based on the score that I want to shoot, my personal par, or I want to break 80 or 100 or 90, what are the skills that I need, and what does good performance look like that allows me to achieve that score? So I can see that it's a manageable target to work towards. It's not too far away, but equally it's an appropriate target that's challenging me at the right level. Now, when we come down to rate your game out of 10, this golfer's just kind of gone 2 through the whole ranking. And this suggests to me that this golfer just really doesn't feel like they're good enough in any area. Now, rather than taking it by chance, for example, this golfer might have put bunker play They want to get better at bunkers because they had a bad experience in a bunker last time they were on the golf course, or long range putts outside 15 foot. They might think putting, I need to be better at long distance putting. Instead of just kind of being lucky that we've chosen the right ones, now using separation value, we can actually target and we say, right, what's our focus for tee shots? How can we get that 2 up to a 5? What's our approach shots? How can we get that 2 up to a 5? And what are our chip shots inside 30? Inside 30 yards, how can we get that 2 to a 5? Now, of course, we can work on other stuff, but if we've got a limited time in order to be, in order to achieve our goals and practice and play the game, let's make sure we channel that time so it's most efficient and effective and transferable onto the golf course. So again, I thought that was quite a nice case study to share that example with, and with this player, that's exactly how we might progress with their plan for the year. So what does good performance look like? And I think this is a nice little share for you. So they're kind of just random statistics. There's some really important statistics and there's some more random statistics on there. But shooting par, if the on-course statistics in that blue section, they're the kind of numbers that you might be looking for. Breaking 80, they're the numbers that you're kind of looking for in that green section. In the gold section, breaking 90, and in the red section, breaking 100. So you can have a look through these in your own time. But for our golfer who wants to break 100, we now know that we don't need to hit the ball 200 yards. We know we just need to consistently hit the ball, get that shot center beyond 155 yards and hit 38% or 40% of fairways. That would be a good driving performance. For our golfer that wants to get down to a 1 handicap, you can see greens in regulation. If we can get somewhere between 11 or 13 greens in regulation, that'll be a great place to be. We don't have to make that target so small that it actually draws away from hitting greens in regulation, and I end up only hitting 6 or 7 because my target is just too tight. So some useful information, and really the moral of this is to kind of help you understand what good performance might look like for your level of play and the standard that you want to achieve, but also get you to understand that measuring performance in play is going to be really important for helping you achieve your goals. It's going to help you transfer into quality practice and start to identify some quality practice sessions, and also transfer that quality practice session back onto the golf course so it becomes a positive spiral up towards you lowering your scores. So that's quite a good share for you. And then finally, I wanted to kind of give you this week's homework, which is this spreadsheet. So you pop your name in there, you can put your 2020 vision in there, and then let's put the separation value skill in there. So is it driving, is it approach play, is it green shots, is it game planning? And then all you can do is simply, because you've completed the Survey Monkey, you've got scoring out of 10. So you might have put 5 in here, or this bottom section where it's light, and it could be where are we now. I kind of feel like I've done these the wrong way around. The grey should be at the bottom and the white should be at the top, but you'll get my drift. You might have ranked yourself 5, and then in this section here, where are we now? What does that look like? What does that 5 mean to you as a golfer, and where do you want to be? So I want to be at 9. And then what does that look like? So for our friend who wants to break 100, we've ranked ourselves 2, and that 2 might be that my shot center isn't even past 100 yards at the moment, and I need to get it past 155 yards. So to get that to a 4 might be that I just want my shot center past 155 yards. And then to get that 4 to a 6 might be that I want to get that shot center past 155 yards, but I want 40% of those shots to be within 60 yards of each other. And then to get that 6 from an 8 might be that I want to transfer that performance onto the golf course. And so we can start tracking and planning that progress there. So just to start off with, it's a case of saying, right, where am I now? What does that look like? Where do I want to be? What does that look like? And then you can write that out in these boxes here. So I'm just going to send it through as a spreadsheet, so it'll just shape up however you put as much or as little as you want in there. Whiz it back to me, send it back through to me, and then we can have a look at potentially tidying that up. But just to finish off with, I've kind of got 11, 12, 13, 14. I thought it'd be an interesting and fun thing to explore, kind of a no boundaries concept. So for golfers that might start at 2, and I kind of out of 10, something easy that we can all potentially relate to. But once I get to 10, what would normally happen is we could just redefine 10. What does 10 look like for, so if I've set this up for breaking 100, then 10 out of 10 would be I'm hitting, the shot center is beyond 155 and I'm hitting 40% plus fairways. And now I want to break 90. So now I just redefine 10. So we can do that. And if that's a preferred thing for you to work on, then there'd be no problem. But I kind of like the idea of having a no boundaries limit. So let's just keep going. What does 12 look like? What does 14 look like? And then we'll just shift the numbers, and what does 18, 20, 23 look like? And we can have some fun with that. But that's entirely up to you and where you'd like to take it. But please do have some fun with that. Feel free to ask any questions, send through any emails as always. They're very much welcomed. As always, thank you for the communications. I hope that's made sense, and look forward to seeing you next week. All right, take care and have a great Easter.